people who go out. Very, very rarely is it ever like, I believe in this cause. There's a few people who are gung-ho, they believe in it. The rest of the people are like, I just want to get out of class. And then they just go along with it. And then it's a short step between, I'm just gonna go along with it, to all of a sudden, you're wearing a uniform at a rally like, how did I get here? Then you can't walk back from it because psychologically now you're invested. I'm here, I'm dressed like them, I'm talking like them, I've been living like them. And so you sort of rationalize it. Maybe, I'm not a follower, I believe in this. And you trick yourself into it. And so that's a really long way of saying, be careful of Regina George. Because people in her school hated her in that movie, but nobody would have the guts to say the emperor has no clothes. Even then, it's like Regina George, she's really popular, everyone loves her, everybody wants to be like her, but do they? Yeah, because as soon as they get them all together and they're talking individually, it's like, oh yeah, she's harmed me, she's hurt me in this way, and every single person had a complaint against her. So then you ask the question, then why is it that everyone said that they loved her? Because that's how the herd operates. You get a herd of people together, one person kind of says something, which is probably a thing that they're saying it because they don't want to, we'll say like, oh, I don't want to cause problems, I don't want to just say, so then they'll just say like, oh my gosh, she's so pretty. And then because everybody wants to follow and fit in, they'll, oh my God, you're right, she is so pretty. And then because you get positive feedback from that, and she's also nice, oh my God, yeah, that's right, she's so nice, and you fall into this feedback loop. And the thing in that is that in the herd, nobody believes it. Everybody knows exactly who she is, but then nobody wants to say anything now because they feel like if they do, they're going to be the hater, or they're the one who's the oddball out. So everyone just goes along with it. And then all it takes is one person to say, no, I don't like her. What? Why not? And then you point out something, well, she's really mean to people. You're right. You're right. How come we've never noticed this before? You ever heard of the story, The Emperor Has No Clothes? It's a great, The Emperor's New Clothes. The Emperor Has No Clothes, that's the end of the story. But The Emperor's New Clothes, sorry. It's I guess kind of a fairy tale, but in short, it's about these thieves who go to a king and they're gonna scam him by telling him that they've developed this new fabric that is really, really light and it's gorgeous, it's beautiful, but the thing about it is that only smart people can see it. So you'll know when someone is smart and they're good at their job, because when you reach into the chest and you hold it up, if they don't see it, that means you're dumb. But if you do see it and you recognize how beautiful it is, well then that means you must be smart. So the king is skeptical, but he says, okay, let's see you do it. So he pays them this massive amount of money, and then they sit there and they pretend to like weave this thread to make this garment for the king. Now the king sees them working day and night, he sees the light on, but he doesn't want to go look, because what if he goes and looks and he doesn't see it? So instead he sends his most trusted advisor. The advisor goes there and sees them working and they have the loom going, and like, oh my gosh, you're here. Well, check this out. We're not done yet. We're still working on it, but check out how beautiful this garment is. Now, the advisor, he's the top advisor, and he doesn't see anything. But what can he say? If he says, I don't see anything, they can go, wow, that means you must not be smart. You must be terrible at your job. So instead, he's just like, wow, it's beautiful. Look at, the colors. It's gorgeous. It's amazing. He's not specific about the colors because he doesn't know what colors are supposed to be there. So he goes back and tells the king, it's beautiful. You're going to love this new garment, man. I'm serious. You're going to love this thing. And so the king is like relieved. He's like, okay, well then the advisor saw it, so that he must be smart. He ends up sending somebody else, same story. They come back and they're like, oh my gosh, king, you're going to love it. It's beautiful. So then the day comes, he goes, he gets fitted. They do some last minute alterations as they put the cloak on him. But now the whole room of advisors, they know what they're supposed to see. So they're all like, oh my gosh, it's beautiful, king, wow. The king, of course, sees nothing. But he can't tell them that, because everyone's gonna be like, wow, you don't see it, we see it, you don't see it? So then the king is just like, oh wow, it's so light. It's like, you can't even feel it, it's beautiful. Like, oh yeah. So then the thieves say, you know what you should do? You should have a parade and show the whole city your new garment. And he's like, oh yeah, you're right. So he organizes a parade, and everybody finds out, oh, there's this garment that the king has, and only smart people can see it. So the king puts it on, and he starts walking through the streets naked. And everyone's like, wow, what a beautiful garment, it's unreal. And then there's one little kid who just goes, the emperor's naked, he's got no clothes. And as soon as he says it, people are like, what are you talking about? And someone else is like, all right, I'm glad you said it, I don't see it either. And then it spreads throughout the whole city, the king's walking around naked. When the king's trying to, the best thing he can, keep the stiff upper lip, and he wanders back to his castle. In other words, what gets exposed is not who's smart and who's dumb. What gets exposed is who's willing to just go along with the herd and who's not. And of course, the reason that the little kid goes along with it's not because the little kid's wise. We make that mistake all the time. We say, oh, little kids, they're so smart, they're so wise. If you think a little kid is smart and a little kid is wise, that says more about you than it does about the little kid. The kid isn't necessarily stupid, but you tell me a 5-year-old is wiser than you, you got some problems there. It's just like if you talk to a 5-year-old and you guys agree on everything, there's probably a problem with your worldview, because that means you haven't grown up since you were 5 years old. But what it's telling us is that the little kid didn't know any better. He didn't know he was supposed to go along with it. And little kids are like that. They'll just be straight up blunt with you. They don't mean to hurt your feelings. You ever have a kid say something really mean to you? And you're like, oh, what's wrong with your face? It's like, it's the only face I have. It's weird. They don't mean to be mean. They just say things that are true. Remember one time a friend of mine and I were walking into a McDonald's, and we both had like this kind of black trench coat things. And there's this little girl, she comes out, she's like 8 or so, I don't know, or 7, whatever she was. And she's walking, she's holding a cup, and she almost runs into us. And she looks at us and she just goes, oh my God, you guys are dirty. Like looking at us like there's something, you guys are filthy. And we're like, what the hell was this? Now, were we dirty? No, I just showered, actually. But in her mind, that's what she was thinking, and she just said it. And that's why oftentimes we start telling little kids, don't just say that stuff. But there's a difference between don't blurt out a mean thing and go along with the wrong thing. Those are two very different things. You don't have to say everything that's on your mind. But then again, you also shouldn't just go along with whatever people say, because that's how you get things like what Adriel was talking about, little man in the mustache. That's how people go along with that stuff. It isn't that you had a whole country full of people who were Jew-hating Nazis. You had a whole country full of people who were like, well, I mean, everyone else is going along with it. And that bears out. I probably have the book on my shelf called The True Believers, and it's written by a guy named Eric Hoffer. And it's a history of mass movements and how you get people to go along. So if you're somebody and you wanted to start like a cult, let's say, or you wanted to be a political figure even, you read this book. It's very easily understood, and it's a wonderful book. And the guy who wrote it, he worked at the docks. He wasn't a professor, and he just worked as a longshoreman unloading ships his whole life. And he would unload the ships during his lunch break. He would read and he would write. That's all he did. He just really liked reading, and there are these great pictures of him working with his notebook like jammed in the back of his pocket. He'd get an idea, he'd write it down, and then jump back into work. And he actually got a job working as a professor after the book came out. Don't quote me on this, but I think he only did it for like a semester. He couldn't stand it because he was surrounded by all these academics and all these professors who didn't have any real world experience. And so he ended up resigning and going back to work unloading the docks, and wrote a few more books. Wonderful guy, Eric Hoffer. But anyway, what essentially he points out is that mass movements are always started by a few true believers, people who really do think. Like, hey, you can't, you look at the fabric, you can see, I can see the fabric. They might truly believe, they might trick themselves into believing it. But then from there, it just spreads out to people who don't really believe it, but they want to belong to the cause. It's like if you see, what was it, the walkout happened a few weeks ago, which wasn't really a walkout at all. It happened during lunch. It was more of a walk around than a walkout. But how many people who were there actually really believed in the cause versus how many people were there just because their friends were there or because they heard about it and they just want to go. But you'll see if we ever have one that's during school hours, like during an actual class period, the people who go out, very, very rarely is it ever like, I believe in this cause. There's a few people who are gung-ho, they believe in it. The rest of the people are like, I just want to get out of class. And then they just go along with it. And then it's a short step between, I'm just going to go along with it, to all of a sudden, you're wearing a uniform at a rally like, how did I get here? Then you can't walk back from it because psychologically now you're invested. I'm here, I'm dressed like them, I'm talking like them, I've been living like them. And so you sort of rationalize it. Maybe, I'm not a follower, I believe in this. And you trick yourself into it. And so that's a really long way of saying, be careful of Regina George. Because people in her school hated her in that movie. But nobody would have the guts to say the emperor has no clothes. Others. Follows. It tracks. Be careful what you pretend to be. Be careful what you pretend to be. Because if you pretend to be something, you might actually become it. And that isn't a way of saying fake it till you make it. That is terrible advice. Fake it until you make it. Because if you fake it and then you make it, you've got no reason to be real. Faking worked. So what do you continue to do? Be fake. And then you never actually become the thing that you were trying to become. And so instead, work to become the thing that you want to become. Be careful who you surround yourself with. Be careful what you pretend to be. If you pretend to be somebody who's, I saw this commercial one time. I can't remember exactly what they were selling, which makes it probably a bad commercial, but I don't see many commercials. And it was a guy, it was one of those things where it's like, he was playing racquetball, and it said, be careful, something to this effect, who you make friends with, because you make friends with somebody, in the corporate world, you may end up playing racquetball when you don't know how to play racquetball, and it shows the guy playing racquetball. And if you don't know how to play racquetball, you may get hit in the eye, so it shows the ball flying, it hits him in the eye, it's like, oh. And then if you get hit in the eye, you may have to wear an eye patch. And it shows him walking around town wearing an eye patch, looking all sad. And then if you wear an eye patch, you're gonna look tough. And then people are gonna wanna find out just how tough you are. And it shows him like sitting on the subway, and these guys are like starting crap with him because he's wearing an eye patch, and they wanna test to see how tough you are. And if you find out, and if people wanna test to see how tough you are and you're not tough, you're gonna wake up beaten up in a ditch somewhere. And it shows the guy's ass kicked in a ditch somewhere. So this big slide, be careful what you pretend to be, because you may end up having to prove to people what you are pretending to be. And if you're not that thing, this is great advice, by the way, well, I'll leave it at that. Questions, comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques? Well, if nothing else, we learned about Regina George, and the emperor has no clothes.